everyone, and welcome to Two Player Quest. Today's a bit of a different video than usual. With the holidays coming up, we decided it would probably be a good idea to discuss some gifts for board gamers that are not board games. Because if you have board games in your life, you will probably know that they don't want board games they didn't choose themselves. So, this is a list of a variety of things that have made our lives a lot easier, that we use with a lot of different board games. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing I would suggest is a laminating machine. You need to buy the laminating sheets as well, but we use this to laminate basically every loose piece of paper that is needed in games. For example, these are the character sheets of Dungeons of Doria. We use them for the character sheets for Gloomhaven, for Frosthaven. We use it for the party sheet for Frosthaven, so you can reuse the same piece of paper over and over again. We also have it for some of our roll and write games, so you can reuse that piece of paper. To do so, you need dry erase markers. So these are fine-tipped dry erase markers, so they're basically just like pens. And we use these to write on top of our laminated pieces of paper. Our next suggestion is dice, or specifically, countdown D20s. We use this for HP in Frosthaven, for how much power you still have to produce in something like Dungeons of Doria. Basically, for whatever you need a number, we don't always like the tokens that you get, we use dice. As you can see, we have a big bag full of different dice. We do use a lot of them, but this is just our handy dandy bag of dice. We bought Countdown D20s on Amazon because they are frankly not that easy to find. So that is definitely someplace I would suggest looking if you want to get them for a good price. Next up are, I'm going to call them token organizers. So these are basically sort of screw boxes. I think you're supposed to use them for screws. They come in a variety of sizes. We have a lot of different ones. This one, for example, is for Dungeons of Doria. It has all the useful things neatly organized. This one is for Mansions of Madness. It is two-sided, so you have a top and a bottom. And then we have some empty ones, which we just haven't assigned to a board game yet. You can buy them very cheaply at, say, a dollar store, a Poundland, or here in the Netherlands we have The Action. You also have temporary storage, what we call it, and that's just these sort of plastic tubs that we temporarily put tokens in while you're playing the game to make them easy access, so you don't have to fiddle around with the bag. And then at the end of the game, you just tip them back out into the bag if that's something you like. So this is definitely a suggestion we would do, is getting yourself some of these organizer boxes for the tokens. Continuing on the storage side and the storage idea, here we have several options when it comes to storing cards, for example. So these two boxes contain all the cards for Terraforming Mars, including all the expansions. Now that would not all fit in the one Terraforming Mars box. We find it useful to have two separate boxes. You also have these sort of smaller boxes that you can put smaller cards in, but they're good on the go. This one is currently empty, but this one contains a game called Skibbo. It's just useful to have on the go without being afraid that you'll break it. Speaking of being useful on the go, we have this magic box, which contains this game. As you can see, the size is a lot smaller, and everything fits in this box, meaning it's a lot less space and thus ideal for taking it on the road. For example, we love to take it on holiday with us. Now this is going to be by far the most expensive thing that I show you today. I think we bought this for about 80 euros. It is a Game Genic, I think it's called a Game Lair. I will be making a video on what exactly it is and what is in it for us later on. But you can open it. This turns into a dice tray. When you fold it correctly, it turns into a dice tray, which is very useful. And as you can see, it contains a lot of cards, and all these tabs are different games. It also has an area for paper, pens, everything you need. and it has two sides where you can hold dice and tokens. If you're someone who has a lot of smaller games and likes to travel with them, this is ideal. This is what we call our travel box. If you have smaller games you want to play with more people, this is a good extra for someone you care about. The next suggestion I would do is getting something like a gaming mat. So there are neoprene mats specific for some games like Wingspan, Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, but if you don't know if your board gamer already has these mats, there's not much use to having extra of them, for example. You could just go for something a bit more generic that's a bit bigger, but basically any game can be played with it. It gives your table a bit of protection when it comes to rolling dice. It also makes it easier to deal cards because they slide easier and they are easier to pick up. This one, for example, is from IKEA. It's basically a large mouse mat. It's meant for on a desk. But it is €10. If you get two of these, depending on how big your table is, that will get you quite far to get a nice experience, but without paying too much money. Next suggestion is dice trays. So we have dice trays that come like this. They're basically just sheets of neoprene fabric. You snap them together here by the corners, and then you end up with this dice tray. We like dice trays because they keep your dice together, your dice don't go all over the board, and it's a lot harder to have a cocked dice because your dice trays should be flat. My next suggestion is useful for people who play games that require line of sight. For example, dungeon delvers like Dungeons of Doria, Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, sometimes Arkham Horror as well. To see if you have line of sight, this is basically a laser pointer, but instead of it being a point, it is a line. So you can see if the line gets to where you need it to go. This is mainly meant for war games, for example, Warhammer or Bolt Action. It's called a target lock. This one is by the Army Painter. If I'm not mistaken, it was about €15. I will be inserting a clip now. But definitely something I would suggest. Next, one of the suggestions I could make are these basically serving trays. So again, these are from IKEA. They are very cheap. I think they are €5 at the most. On this one, as you can see, we keep SkyTeam. It's just easy to quickly store away and pick up the games once you've played it. We've also had these for Gloomhaven to quickly put away your characters if we needed the table for something. Or, as you can see on this one, we use it for the miniatures of Mansions of Madness / Arkham Horror because they play in the same world. But we use this for all the minis because otherwise they wouldn't necessarily fit in the box, and it is a hell of a palaver to keep them separated. So, storage trays. You could use them for serving drinks, or whatever you need serving trays for otherwise, or board games. And my final suggestion is glasses or coasters in the colours of the general board game colours. Usually that is yellow, blue, red and green. So we have glasses with at the bottom the colour of the board game colours. Plus we also have these coasters. The coasters we got when we bought this table. The glasses we bought ourselves. We find it easy to basically have an allocated glass when playing board games. People know what colour they are, people know what glass they need to use. I've also seen really cool coasters that basically people make themselves with the covers of board games. Now, I am not that creative, but I have seen tutorials online. That is also something you could do if you are so inclined. But other than that, I would suggest finding and buying them instead. And that brings us to the end of the video. I hope this gave you some inspiration for what to get as a gift for the board gamers in your life. Usually I make content about board games specifically for 2 people. If that's something you'd like, please consider subscribing. If you have any comments, feedback, or suggestions, or other ideas, for example, put them in the comments below and we can all learn from each other. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time on 2 Player Quest.